Across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Greg Groogan in Houston.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, the issue is.
It was, by almost all accounts, a staggering once-in-a-generation shift in allegiance. Texas Latinos, long considered a foundational component of Democratic Party prospects in the Lone Star State, abandoned the progressive ship en masse during this past election. A departure the GOP deeply hopes has permanence. For years, Houston State Representative Mano DeAyala has worked to engineer a Latino conservative awakening. This week, we spoke about its stunning arrival. I've been doing this 40 years. I have never seen a demographic shift of 28% cycle to cycle, much less 40%. That's what Latino males did in the great state of Texas, moving from Team Biden to Team Trump. How do you explain it?
We're seeing the voters coming out in droves. For the first time in modern history, a Republican president has won the Hispanic vote statewide. That's amazing.
That is cataclysmic for the Democrats. It's landscape changing for Republicans. Is it a one and done? How do you hold that?
Well, that's the concern. Is this a one and done? Did the stars align in so many reasons to make this happen? Or is this a progression that we see continuing? I think it's the latter.
The Democrats presented a message heavily weighted on abortion rights and failed to defend their policy on the border, failed to defend their policy on transgender issues.
It's this welfare state mentality. It's this, what am I going to do for you, not what I can help you do for yourself. It is the let's go focus more on those that are here undocumented than the people that are citizens and residents here. And the list goes on. All of that resonates. If you have the message and the right messenger, the truth ultimately prevails. And I think in this election cycle it did.
Folks would much prefer an environment in which they can thrive and prosper on their own versus asking for some type of support, aid, or handout from the government. You agree with that?
Vast majority of Texans agree with that. It's basically when you define American exceptionalism, that's really what it is. I look in the mirror, I don't look to the government. And that is how I'm going to have my livelihood. The government's job is to get out of the way and let opportunity abide for us to prosper and succeed. There's a few, and I call them the kind of the super educated elite, that feels like they have to play the parent and say, I know what's best for you, let government do this for you. That's a Band-Aid, that's temporary, and usually causes more harm than good.
Our mutual friend Bill King met with some Mexican-American lawmakers from South Texas who felt compelled to remain in the Democratic Party for a while, but said they were tolerated, their pro-life positions were tolerated within a party that looked down on them because of that. Do you think this opens up an opportunity that Ryan Guillen took?
Ryan Guillen didn't leave his party necessarily, his party left him. And you hear that over and over. You have Sean Theory, who left the Democrat Party, and others. What you're seeing here are Democrats, especially in South Texas in the Valley, that say, you know what, I align more with the Republican Party. You're not seeing it the other way around.
Are Latinos in Texas just tired of waiting?
If we as a party do not capitalize on these gains that we had this last cycle, and I don't mean next election cycle, I mean tomorrow. If we don't continue to build on that, shame on us.
My word for that is defection. Stephen, what's your word?
My word, unsure.
All right, Rudy, lay it on me.
Greg, I'm going to go with the Spanish word, fallido.
All right, hang with us. The Fox Texas Trio will be back on the other side of this break. A 28-point cycle shift in Latino support away from Texas Democrats in favor of Texas Republicans. Still hard to fathom, but it happened. The yet to be answered question, Is it a one-time phenomenon which Democrats can reverse with the right candidates and the right message? Rudy, I'll throw that at you.
You know, Greg, a lot of political analysts have pointed out that there was another big flip in South Texas in our lifetime, and that was a few years ago by George Bush. But after that, it's best to remember the region flipped back to blue. The warning that we just heard from the state representative is spot on, in my opinion. Republicans have to deliver now on promises to improve the economy and to provide a comprehensive border immigration plan. If the only tangible action by the Trump administration and a GOP majority in Congress is just mass deportation with more wall construction, that would certainly be fallo, my word earlier, which means a failure, a mistake. Democrats will certainly play the victimization card, and it's important to realize that that big blue wall in the Rio Grande Valley, you know, it did not totally collapse. All red did well there, and down ballot Democrats, well, they won the majority of the local races. So if the economy doesn't improve and a real immigration plan isn't done, those red votes in South Texas, they could easily evaporate as early as the 2026 midterms, Greg.
Stephen, there are roughly 18 million voters in Texas, and more than a third of them are Latino, a number that will only grow. Do you see anything Democrats can do to lure them back into the fold?
Well, first I want to say tip of the hat to the Republicans because, I mean, they did what they needed to do and beyond that, right? Now, can Democrats get it back? Sure. And the reason why I said unsure is a lot of things were working against Democrats in this past election, right? You had voters who just weren't going to vote for a woman. Let's be real about that. You had voters who didn't think Kamala Harris had a different message than Joe Biden. Let's be real about that. And then you have the economy, and then gender wars and the border. And so all those things working together, yeah, it spelled for a blowout that many of us did not expect. But can Republicans hold on to that? I'm unsure about it.
All right, Rudy. I'm guessing the wild card here is the new administration and just how serious President Trump truly is about the mass deportation you mentioned. Fact is, that frequently repeated threat didn't seem to erode his Latino support on November 5th.
Greg, that wild card could have been your word too, right? Certainly is a wild card with the Trump administration. I think what we saw in regards to immigration was NIMBYism taking root in South Texas, just as it did in a lot of northern cities. The massive migrant surge at the border allowed by the Biden administration was not dominated by your usual group of people from Central America. The surge had a much different look to it, with a lot of people from other regions of the world illegally crossing the border. That kind of rapid culture change can be a shock and bring out cries of, not in my backyard, and I think we heard that. You do have to, as Stephen said, give a tip of the old Stetson to Governor Abbott. His migrant bus trips, they paid off. Abbott also spent a lot of time the past 4 years in South Texas pushing GOP candidates, reaching out to blue-collar voters who voted, and they voted big in South Texas, Greg.
All right, Stephen, if you're a Democratic Party strategist, do you toss out the current playbook, or do you stick with it and hope a generation of younger Texans eventually mature and embrace progressivism in numbers that give you a shot statewide?
Well, if I had the magic answer, I might need to leave my day job. But I will say this. What is insanity doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome? Democrats definitely in Texas are going to have to try to do something different. Now, that different may not work in 2026. That might have to be playing the long game, right? And it hinges on things like the economy. Will the border change? But I will say, with President-elect Donald Trump having the Senate and the House and the Supreme Court, if Republicans or people who crossed over to vote for him doesn't see real change, I think some of this support may be fading.
Rudy, real quickly, are you detecting any angst about deportations in Central Texas?
No, I haven't heard anything in regards to that, but it's starting to bubble up. We're starting to hear the questions, are you going to take out all families? I think the first step from what we're hearing and hearing realistically are the criminal element. They'll be the first to go, I think.
Stephen, how about you, real quick?
Yeah, I mean, can't wait to see it happen, to see if he can really do it. We already know that it's going to happen in the people who are criminals and the people who are already in custody. roundups at construction sites, I don't see how it's physically going to be possible, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right, that's all the time we have. To see this episode or any of our past ones, check out Fox Local or go to our station YouTube.
And keep the conversation going with us on social media.
And be sure to join us next week as we take up another hot issue for Texas. And in the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.